Hey guys, welcome and ting and ting and ting. And I did I reacted to a video on a Scotsman who invented the electric clock. And in the comment section, somebody says, "Hey, check out John Logie Baird. He's the man who invented the television," and that's the title of this year. So we're gonna go in there and see, because when you think of stuff like the television and all of that, you don't think that's somebody from a small country in comparison to the bigger countries that seem to take credit for everything. You wouldn't know that. So I'm interested to see what it is. And lo and behold, Scotland History Tours have a video on him. So I'm going to react to this one and thing. Let's go ahead on YouTube and simmer and learn something about John Logie Baird. Baird, B-A-I-R-D. Oh, let's go.
A momentous day in Scottish, British, indeed world history, and an opportunity missed. I'll tell you about it in this video. Hiya, I'm Bruce Fumi. If you're interested in the people, places and events in Scottish history, then at the bottom left hand side there's a button that you can click to subscribe at any time during this video. In the meantime, let me tell you a story.
Let's hear the story.
Scots hear John Logie Baird and they think, oh, the television guy. He was way more interested than that. Squillions of patents, harebrained schemes, successes, failures, and a three-way open marriage, if you please. Aye, that's perked your ears up, hasn't it? He was born a son of the manse in this house here in Helensburgh, in the suburbs. It's actually up for sale, as you can see there, right? But it's a short walk into town, where he has a statue in the esplanade and a stained glass window in the town's parish church. It's also a walk I'm sure he took many times. So let me tell you the story as we go. After school, he went on to study at Glasgow and West of Scotland Technical College, Strathclyde University. But the First World War came along, and he tried to enlist, but he had health problems throughout his life, and he was deemed unfit to be meaninglessly slaughtered in the trenches of Europe. So he left college without graduating, and he worked through the war as an electrical engineer in a munitions factory in Glasgow. Now, imagine you were a sickly bloke from the west of Scotland at the end of the Great War, and you wanted to improve your health and make your fortune. You'd probably head off to set up a jam-making factory in Jamaica, wouldn't you? You might be surprised to know that this early venture failed. You see, in many ways, Baird was ahead of his time. But in Jamaica, jamming was a thing of the past. Shut it. He had failures. He tried to create diamonds by heating graphite. He invented a glass razor which was rust resistant but shattered. He tried to make pneumatic shoes, but the semi-inflated balloons in the soles of his prototype burst, and his injuries were attended to by a GP called Dr. Martins. Yeah, I made the Dr. Martins bar. Okay, so if you arrived back from Jamaica with your health worse and your money gone, what would you do then? That's right, you'd go to London to invent the television, wouldn't you? Yes. It just so happened that a theory had been put forward for an electronic system of creating light on glass cathode ray tubes. It had been put forward by a Scotsman called Archibald Campbell Swinton. The problem was there was only a theory, and developing it required expensive equipment. John Logie Baird had no money. He just had lots of jam. However, there was a German called Nipkow. Now, I know that he sounds like a cattle thief, but Nipkow was actually a scientist. And he had suggested a more mechanical theory, which he had also never proved. Baird had been sent out of London for the sake of his health, and he was staying in Hastings in a garret room with an old school chum. So, one day, he was out for a walk, and he had a flash of inspiration, as these great men do. And he went home, and he and his school chum built the world's first working television set using an old hat box, a pair of scissors, some darning needles, a few bicycle light lenses, a used tea chest, sealing wax and glue. And he'd never even seen an episode of Blue Peter. Oh, can I ask the Brits, in your own words, to explain your best memories of Blue Peter to the non-Brits in the comment section below, especially if you made something that they showed you, right?
Okay, now I've heard them say that the television was invented in England. I've heard that. They didn't say it was a Scotsman that did it though. So I assume it was a British, an English guy, a Londoner or whatever, that invented it. Now, him trying and feeling, that's most inventors. And there's a lot more, and in life in general, there's a lot more failures than trials. It's just how you let it affect you and move on from there. Obviously, my man was like, I'm gonna try everything. I'll leave the country. I'll leave the continent. You know what I mean? And this man's mind was always working, which is kind of cool. Let's keep going here.
Now, you might be wondering why this Heath Robinson approach. Oh, how many old-time UK TV references can I get into one video? It's worth reminding you, he was using his own money and he had none of it. Now, a quick technical point. The way that TV works is to eliminate little chunks of the screen in a series of lines in order to build up a picture. The more strips or lines on the screen, the higher the definition of the picture. Now, Baird was doing this with 30 strips. Modern HD tellies use up to 1080 strips, so back then the definition was low, but it was television. In February 1924, ahead of the competition from around the world, John Logie Baird publicly demonstrated the ability to create television images of a silhouette. He moved out of his room into a workspace above a shop. 5 months later, while beavering away in this workshop, he gave himself a 1,000-volt electric shock that threw him across the room and nearly killed him and British television before it started. He survived, but the landlord evicted him from the premises. Health and safety gone mad. Or excessive electricity bills, I'm not entirely sure which. He had to move back to London, and he had to start again. But by 1925, Baird had come up with an actual television that not only showed silhouettes, but full grayscale images. And in January 1926, at the Royal Institution in London, he demonstrated how he had filmed, produced and transmitted the first television picture with a grayscale image of a ventriloquist dummy that he nicknamed Stooky Bill. This was a triumph. Not only was this real telly, Stooky Bill went on to become leader of the Conservative Party and serve as Prime Minister from 1990 to 1997. But there was competition. On the 7th of April 1927, Bell Labs in the US managed to get mechanical television to work as well. Using a staff of around 1,000, they'd managed to send a signal between Washington and New York. Baird and his one assistant decided that they had to up their game. So later in the year, Baird trumped the Americans by transmitting a long-distance television signal over 438 miles of telephone line between London and Glasgow, with the world's first long-distance television pictures being shown in the Central Hotel in Glasgow. There were huge difficulties to overcome trying to communicate between London and Glasgow, because both of them talk funny. A voice from the southeast of England isn't so much an accent as an alarm bell warning that something pompous is about to happen. Likewise, any southern Englishman, the Glasgow accent is an indication that something extreme is about to happen to you. It might be extremely violent, it might be extremely friendly. Either way, you're going to wish that you'd stayed in Edinburgh. I'm not here to make friends, I'm here to educate. This is Helensburgh Parish Church, and the colourful stained glass window behind me is dedicated to John Logie Baird. How appropriate, because the next year he went on to demonstrate the world's first colour transmission on the 3rd of July 1928.
See, now I'm pretty old, right? And they're talking about the invention of the television. So let me date myself here. I remember when television was powered by tubes, and then if one of the tubes blow out, you could buy a tube and screw it back in. Now those TVs didn't last very long, while I was growing up. It changed really quick. Technology took off, you know what I mean? But I remember getting in the back of the television and fiddling with all that little stuff and thing back there whenever one of those fuse type looking thing goes out. First time we had television was the late 70s. First thing I watched was Sesame Street. That was my first confusion when they were saying Z instead of Z. I was like, what is this Z they speak of? But I remember back when and it was in this big old box, wooden, with a little mesh, the beige colored mesh covering over the speakers and thing like that. Yeah, I remember the old fashioned TV and thing,
Utilising the fact that any colour could be made up of three primary colours. A principle that had been first demonstrated by another Scotsman, James Clerk Maxwell. I've got a video about him up here if you're interested. Baird used three spirals of apertures, each spiral with a filter of a different primary colour, and three light sources at the receiving end. Now, the demonstration was of a young girl wearing different coloured hats. So, it was a Scotsman who broadcast the first ever televised fashion show. In 1928, he suggested that radio waves could be used to detect metal objects at a distance. So when the Battle of Britain arrived, this idea was taken up and radar was invented by another Scotsman. He also suggested that infrared could be used to see in the dark, and he proposed fibre optics. Come on, rest of the world, catch up. Scotland's taking the piss out of you.
Yeah.
In 1928, he developed an early video recorder, which he dubbed Phonovision. Now, in the unlikely event that there's anyone under 30 watching this, your mum will explain video recorder. He set up a company which floated in the stock market. Finally, he had some funding. And in 1928, the Baird Television Development Company achieved the first ever transatlantic telephone transmission from London to New York. John Logie Baird on the Esplanade at Helensburgh. The thing now was to get the British Broadcasting Corporation to add television to its radio emissions. Now it so happened that the BBC was being run, that's right, by a Scotsman, John Reith from Stonehaven. Not only that, but Reith and Baird had gone to college together in Glasgow. In fact, Reith had been Baird's bully, and his bullying extended into later life. Reith did everything to oppose Baird making or transmitting television programmes for the BBC. The barriers were up, the shutters were down. Entry to the modern world was blocked. You see, it's not always the English who hold us back. So to show how popular television would be with the public, Baird televised the first live outside broadcast by transmitting the 1931 Derby to a packed cinema. This helped Baird get past BBC intransigence and Lord Reith. And in the early 1930s, both the BBC and the Baird Company were producing programmes for the BBC to transmit from South London. But at the opening ceremony for the public launch of the BBC in the world's first public service television in London, Lord Reith didn't turn up. And John Logie Baird, the inventor of television and the man who almost single-handedly drove the technology forward in Britain, was put in the audience rather than with the dignitaries on stage. The BBC held a trial to compare Baird's system with one from EMI Marconi. Now the trial was due to last 6 months, but initially Baird's system seemed more cumbersome, and then there was a fire which wiped out the Baird facilities in London. BBC broadcasts with the Baird system stopped in February 1937. The Baird Company went into receivership, and Baird went back to operating from a workshop in his garden.
Wow.
You can probably tell that we're getting towards the end of our story. After a heart attack in 1941, John got a job as a technical consultant with Cable and Wireless. And he used his salary to pay for 2 assistants to help further develop television. He developed the fax, which was promptly forgotten. And then, on this day in history, On the 16th of August 1944, he gave the world's first demonstration of fully electronic, full-colour, stereoscopic 3D HD television. In 1944, without having to wear those daft specs. He proposed HD colour telly to the British government in 1945. We didn't even get SD colour telly in our house until 1978. Because John Logie Baird had a stroke. And in 1946, he died. And he was buried back here in Helensburgh. And his wife and children had to go and stay with his sister. Without John Logie Baird, television was literally held back by decades. It's 2020 and we're just now catching up with some of the ideas that he conceived in 1944. John Logie Baird, the man who conceived the key mechanism by which we now gain so much of our news, our information, our entertainment and our sporting and cultural events, died in 1946 with an empty bank account. He brought us television, he brought us colour, he brought us the ability to show Scotland to the world. He deserves that you should share his story. Without John Logie Baird, we'd be in darkness. I mean, Dawkins going to be a llama line. Cheerio, Justin.
Wow, that is so cool. See, I've noticed something about a lot of people like him, inventors and stuff. They usually way before their time. They envision things that that people would think not possible until it becomes possible. Didn't they say that Leonardo da Vinci had painted, had drawn sketches for helicopters and stuff back in the day? Yeah, flying machines and stuff. I mean, these people that are always thinking like that, the inventors, the artists, you know, the creative minds and stuff. They're usually ahead of the time by far and thing, you know what I mean? I'll leave a link to this video in the description. Go check it out. Check this guy's channel out if you're interested in Scotland. If you're interested in history period, this would be a good channel to check out, okay? I'll leave a link in the description to this video. You can get to his channel through that. If you like what I'm reacting to, drop a like on the video, subscribe, all that good stuff. Make sure and comment and keep the comments coming with the suggestions for videos and stuff for me to watch, okay? Those are really helping me out. Thank you all for comments, likes, the shares, the everything that you all do, man. I appreciate it greatly. I'll leave links here of videos that I've reacted to on Scotland so you all can keep watching it. You understand what I mean? Get my insights on what I'm thinking is going on and thing, or my little stories that I tell in between, alright? In the meantime, you all take care of each other. Cool runnings.